Imagine getting ahead of the curve on some really crucial investment decisions. Well, today, that's exactly what we're aiming for.
We're taking a deep dive into Arrowhead Pharmaceuticals' drug, Plozasiran.
Specifically, we're looking at the upcoming FDA labeling decisions for familial chylomicronemia syndrome, or FCS. These decisions have pretty significant implications for investors.
Absolutely. Our goal here is to help you understand the three main potential outcomes for Plozasiran's label. We'll look at how feasible each is from a regulatory standpoint, the commercial impact, and, importantly, how the market might perceive each one.
This is all leading up to that key date, November 18th, 2025.
Right, the PDUFA date. That's the FDA's deadline to make a decision on the drug's approval.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. Plozasiran, what is it exactly?
It's an RNAi therapeutic. Basically, it works by silencing specific genes. In this case, it's designed to treat FCS.
And it's already got some momentum, right? Fast track, orphan drug designations?
Yes, those help expedite the process. And the application is based on their phase 3 study, PALISADE, which showed strong results.
Now, this term label, it's essentially the FDA's official rulebook for the drug. Who it's for, how it's used.
Exactly. And the specifics of that label are, well, incredibly important. A standard label might just cover, say, patients with genetically proven FCS.
Okay.
But an expanded label that could be much broader. It might include patients diagnosed clinically without genetic proof, or even add specific claims like reducing pancreatitis risk.
And that difference dictates the market size, essentially.
Precisely. It's critical for understanding the real commercial potential here.
Okay, let's unpack the three main scenarios we could see for Plozasiran's initial FCS label. First up, the genetic-only label.
Right. This means it would only be approved for patients whose FCS is confirmed through genetic testing.
How likely is that?
Well, it's feasible. The PALISADE trial did include these genetically confirmed patients, so the data exists. But Arrowhead's own chief medical officer mentioned that both the genetic and the clinically diagnosed patients responded quite similarly to the drug.
And commercially.
Commercially, this would be tough. FCS is ultra rare. We're talking maybe less than 1,000 genetically confirmed patients in the U.S.
Wow, that's small.
Very small. So a genetic-only label really limits the addressable market and, the potential revenue. Investors would likely see this quite negatively. It signals a constrained opportunity, probably leading to a lower valuation.
Okay, not the ideal outcome. So let's move to scenario 2, which sounds, well, more interesting. The genetic plus clinical label.
Yes, this is where it gets much more compelling.
Yeah.
This label would cover both those genetically confirmed patients and those diagnosed based on clinical symptoms and triglyceride levels.
Is that realistic, given the FDA's usual approach?
It seems quite realistic here. Crucially, the phase 3 PALISADE study enrolled both groups, and it showed similar results across the board, about an 80% reduction in triglycerides, which is impressive.
So the data supports it?
It does. And Arrowhead's CEO has really emphasized this, noting Plozasiran is the only drug in its class, an APOC3 inhibitor, to demonstrate this in phase 3 for both groups.
And the commercial impact here?
Huge difference. This significantly expands the number of patients who could receive the drug. Payer dynamics also seem favorable for covering both groups. It fits right into Arrowhead's strategy of scaling to larger patient populations over time.
So investors would like this one?
Oh, very much so. This would be seen very positively. It validates their strategy, suggests a much larger market, and would likely boost the company's valuation.
All right, then there's a third possibility. Adding an acute pancreatitis, or AP, claim directly onto the label. Why does that matter so much?
It matters because FCS patients have a really high risk, a substantially higher risk of developing acute pancreatitis, which can be dangerous and requires hospitalization. Having a claim that the drug reduces this risk is, well, a major clinical benefit.
And does the data support adding that claim?
The PALISADE data look good here, too. It showed an 83% reduction in AP events, and that was statistically significant.
So it should be on the label, then?
That's the tricky part. Despite the strong data, Arrowhead's CMO has said it's unclear if it'll make it onto the initial label. The FDA has a lot of discretion.
Ah.
Yeah, apparently a competitor drug got a sort of mention of pancreatitis benefit, but without hitting statistical significance in their trial. So getting a formal claim, even with stats, isn't a guarantee.
But Arrowhead is doing another study, SHASTA-5.
They are, but that seems aimed more at convincing payers of the benefit, potentially for reimbursement discussions, rather than for the initial FDA label itself.
Understood. But if they did get that AP claim?
If they did, it would be incredibly valuable. Big boost for adoption by doctors and patients, definitely helps with getting payers on board, potentially supports premium pricing. It would really differentiate Plozasiran, especially as they think about moving into the much larger SHTG market later.
So a major positive for investors if it happens.
Absolutely. Huge confirmation of clinical value boosts confidence, probably raises those revenue projections even higher.
Okay, pulling this all together for investors listening, what seems like the most likely outcome for this initial FCS approval come November 2025?
Based on the data and the company's commentary, the genetic plus clinical label seems the most probable. It's supported by the phase 3 trial design and results, and it aligns with commercial realities and payer outlooks.
And the AP claim?
Desirable, definitely impactful if it happens, but maybe less likely for the initial label. Given the FDA's discretion, it might be something added later, perhaps.
Got it. Now, thinking beyond just this initial FCS approval, what would represent a true upside for investors, something bigger down the road?
The real major upside comes from potential approvals in much larger indications. Think severe hypertriglyceridemia, SHTG, or even atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, ASCVD.
Massive patient populations there.
Exactly. Arrowhead is already running or planning separate phase 3 studies for these. But importantly, that requires whole new data sets and submissions. It's not part of this current FCS decision. That's the long-term play.
And finally, what are the key risks investors should still keep front of mind?
Well, there's always the risk the FDA might interpret the data differently, or maybe ask for more information, delaying things. Looking longer term, data for those bigger indications needs to be positive.
Right.
And then you have the usual potential hurdles, manufacturing scale-up, unexpected issues there, or maybe challenges securing favorable reimbursement from payers, even with a good label. These are always factors.
So it really underscores how these seemingly small details on an FDA label can have such a profound impact on a company's trajectory.
It truly does. Understanding these regulatory nuances, these different potential paths, is absolutely key if you're trying to make informed investment decisions in this space.
Which leads us to our final thought for you. What stands out to you about how the FDA's precise wording on a drug label can fundamentally reshape not just the market potential, but perhaps the entire future evaluation of a company?